what we've got up here, obviously well, not obviously, but you will have had some exposure to 365 and be aware of the different plans. Now, there's quite a different range of them in both the small and mid-sized business and also the enterprise as well. Now, the ones, I've only got 4 up there. Now, this is based on typically what we're seeing in the marketplace at the moment, what people are talking to us about and what they're interested in. There are other plans that we can look at, and we don't always try and crowbar people into these because this is what's most common. Everything's done on a case-by-case scenario, but this is most commonly what you're going to be seeing. So, just to understand, one of the key points in plan selection, or there's a few points in plan selection, but one of the key things which we look at, which may push people onto enterprise plans, is that within the 3 enterprise plans that you've got there, they are interoperable. So you can actually mix and match. You can have different people in different plans. Hopefully, when you see the functionality of different plans, that will become a bit more apparent as to where you may want to do that. The mid-sized business is very similar to the E3 plan at a lower cost, but there are some limitations with that. So we'll just run through those now. Okay, so first of all is the pricing, obviously, which is what a lot of people are interested in. Now, this is a per user per month cost. So $9.80 for the 365 mid-sized business, and then you've got $260 up to £15 on the enterprise plan. So that's the first reason. Obviously, you're going to want to try and minimise your costs as much as possible, even with this type of environment. So if you can put people on lower plans, then we would recommend doing so to keep that down as much as possible. The next division between them is if you're going for the mid-sized business, you have got a cap of 300 users. Now, beyond that, you're going to need to move on to the enterprise plans, which you can have unlimited users on. It didn't used to be the case, but fairly recently, Microsoft have made it so that there is a sort of migration wizard to move from the mid-sized business onto the enterprise plans, which actually makes it much more straightforward. It's not necessarily the case across all the plans, and again, that's something that we can help you with in deciding exactly what you want. Some of them it is a manual process, which essentially you have to take down the information from one plan and put it onto the new one. But for most cases of where you want to move, Microsoft now make it so that it's much easier to switch between the different plans. So, a lot of this has been covered already, but let's start off by looking at what the most common features are. So no matter what you get a 50 gig mailbox, that's per user. Now, there have been some discussions of what happens if you run out of capacity with the questions. To be honest with you, a lot of customers that we've seen have fairly strict mailbox limits. Some of them have even been around the 200-300 meg mark, so they're very, very tight control. The nice thing with this is that you can just let people run riot with it. Next one, something that is mentioned a lot, just to try and reinforce it, is the 99.9% uptime. Now, I had a look on the Trust Center, which was mentioned earlier. If you just Google Microsoft Trust Center, I'll bring that up. That is a statistic that I took up yesterday, which is 99.6, which is the last quarterly uptime results. I think the highest they've achieved for this is 99.98, which was back in 2013, I believe. As I think Paul alluded to earlier, to achieve that sort of uptime with an on-premise environment, or actually doing that yourselves, just in terms of redundancy, you're going to need a lot of investment in your infrastructure. And then we've got AD integration as well. So with that gives greater control and manageability, and also important if you want to look at running a hybrid environment, either when you're doing the migration from on-premise and you need to split it, or if for whatever reason you actually want a continual hybrid deployment. So this is where the clear division comes in. Again, something else which is very important, which I think has probably been brought home by now, is that just because Office 365 is in the cloud doesn't mean you have to stream the applications. With those two plans, mid-sized business and E3, you actually get the full Office Professional Plus suite. So in my portal at the moment, I currently have access to 2013 and 2010. You don't just get that once. You get that's 5 instances that you can download per user on your machine. So what we have here is, just to show how easy this is, this is actually where I've gone in as a user. This isn't as an admin. As a user, I've gone into my 365 portal, clicked on my settings, and I can see and manage the software that I've got. I've got my current Windows desktop there. I've got my old creaky laptop, which we just use for dev. And then I've got my MacBook at home, which we use for work occasionally. And all of that is fully legal and licensed under Microsoft Office. It's extremely simple to deploy. So even at home, I just go on, select what I want to do, click download, and it goes off and installs it. There is a connection occasionally between the two. So you don't actually have the usual licensing issues of worrying about what's where. It actually makes that side of it a lot more manageable as well. I can deactivate this. If my account's deactivated for whatever reason, then the next time my applications try and communicate between the two, it's not going to work and I'm not going to have them anymore. So looking now, we've got in these plans, you'll notice now with the Exchange Online, that's actually dropped a lot of the little checks off. Exchange Online is pretty much just that. It's just there for people that want to have email. You get a bit more with Enterprise or E1 package, as we call it. That's more of the full functionality in terms of what you're getting with Link, OneDrive, and so on and so forth. So Link is the full instant messaging. It's the presence. It's what the guys demonstrated earlier with desktop sharing and that sort of thing. One thing we should point out, which was one of the questions that came up, with the Link, if you've got the, you can do the voice to voice and the video between different Link users. With the domain federation, you can connect to other users, which is something that we do. But we've also got a service that you can actually, so I can send out a Link meeting to any of you. If you haven't got Link to connect to me, we can do the traditional screen sharing. We can actually provide a service that would include a telephone number so you can dial into it the same as you would a normal conference call. So there are these add-ons there from third-party providers as well. OneDrive, that is 25 gigs of storage. Now that is separate, that's per user, and that's separate from everything else that we've talked about, and that's included in all those as well. SharePoint, I'm not going to go too deeply into it. As we mentioned throughout, a lot of this isn't just something that we're using, going out and deploying, telling customers and people, evangelizing it and saying, look, you've got to use it. This is something that we use ourselves. So we've gone in, we've separated it out, we've got different parts of the company. So this, for instance, is just a section off of our technical services department. They use it for project planning, tracking. We've got sales, we've got HR. They're all separated out individually. And along with that, we're also using the SharePoint public site functionality as well. So the SOL-TEC, sol-tech.com is our website, and that is all developed from or on the SharePoint platform. On the back of it, it doesn't quite work the same way as the intranet side of things, but there is quite a lot there, and you can, like for instance, the banners and the apps, they're nice, they're plug-in from the App Store, which keeps it nice and simple. So what do we got next? So now we get on to really narrowing down the difference between it. So mid-sized business and E3, as of last Thursday, Microsoft launched the iPad app, and as you can see, that's going down very well. This is from the App Store. So from that you get Word, PowerPoint and Excel. OneNote's on there, but that's been available for some time anyway and isn't really part of the suite. From what I've seen so far, Word and Excel are quite impressive. The one that's very good is PowerPoint. That actually seems to offer additional functionality over and above doing this sort of thing with what you can do. We were going to try and use it today, but nobody was quite brave enough to wrestle their iPad off their 4-year-old to bring it here today. So now the other things which we've been talking about. So you've got advanced email. Now this is really what starts to separate the mid-sized business from the E3 plan. And it's one of the factors that we do see outside of the number of users where companies are deciding, actually, I'm just going to spend the extra and go with E3 because we want that advanced email functionality. So that's what John was talking about, where you get the advanced legal hold functionality, where you can put mailboxes on hold before you delete an account, and it just retains it indefinitely for you. And then there's the e-discovery, which we saw as well. Now, that obviously works with the advanced email side of things, but you've also got quite powerful discovery tools that work not only with the email, but across the whole of the SharePoint platform as well. And business intelligence, which is Power Pivot maps and that sort of thing, which is really pulling in data from multiple sources, giving you quite powerful analytical functionality. That's not something that we've used yet. I'm a bit nerdy with Excel. That's something that I'm quite excited about. We've got a few different, couple different finance systems, which an old and a new one. So hopefully that's going to help us to manage that data and publish it on SharePoint as well. So everything that I've talked about so far, this slide or this sort of layout is available on our website and is just the standard Office plans. The things I'm going to look at a few bits now, which are fairly fundamental to what you may or may not want to do with SharePoint, with Office 365, but it's more stuff that's extracted from the service descriptions. Again, it's not going to be all-encompassing, but these are the main things that we're seeing that people have got of interest. So with E3, you do get the message encryption, so if you need that functionality. With the on hold, you get the inactive mailboxes, so when somebody leaves, as I said before, you put that on hold, you can retain that information indefinitely. You may retain that information, but you can no longer send or receive emails. It does become inactive. Shared mailboxes. This is one where quite a few people are put off or believe that it's not, they're going to be losing some functionality over their on-premise Exchange environment. That's one of the misconceptions, is that you don't actually have the shared mailboxes. You can have shared mailboxes. There is a 5 gig limit on those, but there is no cost for those. You don't need any additional licensing to run the shared mailboxes. As was mentioned in the security talk, anti-spam and malware, that's just included as standard across the board. And you've got public folders and federated sharing as well, something else that we've discussed, using all the different elements of this service. So that was on the 365 side of things. Just going to quickly run through a few of the elements on the SharePoint side. So on the plans where you do get, so even with Enterprise 1, even though you don't get the apps, you still get the SharePoint functionality. So for instance, you've got a number of users within your organization. You've fairly recently purchased laptops with OEM Office on them. You've made that investment. You don't want the applications, but you want them to be able to share in the SharePoint functionality side of things. Then that's useful to have, and again, useful to mix it with the E3 plan. So as a standard, when you buy Office 365, on the SharePoint side of it, you automatically get 10 gigs of data. That's the baseline of your storage, and then 500 megs per user. So as an example, if you had an organization with 100 users, you get 100 times 500 megs, so you get 50 gigs per user for the users, and then 10 gigs on the baseline. So you actually get 60 gigs of storage for the for your SharePoint platform out of the box. Now, should you actually over time run out of capacity, you can actually increase that, and you can just buy that through the SharePoint portal when you want to add that on. So the limitation, again, the main difference here is in terms of the number of site collections that you can have between the mid-size and the enterprise plans. So 20 on the mid-size business and 10,000 site collections across the enterprise plans. So I haven't really talked about site collections or the way that this works, but so with the site collection, it's basically a group of sites. So you've got the top level and then the sub-sites. So within SOL-TEC, we've got our main, what was the guts of our intranet. and then that's split out. We've got separate sections for accounts, HR, and sales, and they're all grouped within that. We have actually then deployed a separate site collection for our technical services, possibly because that's going to have more scope to expand. There is a 1 terabyte limit per site collection, so when you're configuring and running these things, you need to just be aware of that so that you don't run into that. Again, you would need a lot of capacity to actually be, or a lot of use to actually run out of 20, let alone getting anything near the 10,000. Again, we wanted it separate, so it's easy to separate out the security because we're offering out the SharePoint data to customers, which we can do on a sub-site basis, and also on the site collection as well. And that's all fairly straightforward. Limit of 2,000 sub-sites per site collection. Again, that should be more than enough. The public websites element of it, you get 5 gigabytes. Now, as a reference point, I believe even with the apps and plugins, I checked, we're currently running on SOL-TEC.com at 164 megabytes. That's even with all of the plugins that we're running and various images for different things, so there's plenty of capacity available there. The only other thing to note is there is a file limit cap of 2 gigabytes per file that are being uploaded to SharePoint. Now, as much as anything else, that's likely to be an issue with regards to the data transfer speeds, and if you're regularly using files of 2 gigabytes, you're not really going to want to be uploading and downloading from the from SharePoint on a regular basis. So that's where we are with that. Just in summary, the address that I've put across there at the bottom, but it's easy enough to find from SOL-TEC.com. If you go to cloud and then just through there, select the Office 365 mid-sized business plans. That's got that consolidated table, and there's a few footnotes and caveats and things in there as well for you. So the main things, as we discussed, you've got the different prices on the bandings, the fact obviously you can't split the orange with the blue. There's the user caps, and then with the Office applications, the other one which we see is the with the advanced email, which tends to drive people towards the E3 plans. So that's pretty much it. As I've said throughout, this is something that we can help you with, we can advise you with and work through. There's a lot more information. There's pages and pages of stuff in the service descriptions. So not everyone's use case is exactly the same. So that may vary. There may be subtle differences, but we can certainly help you through those. So if there's anything that you need at all, if you want to chat through anything, then get in touch. Obviously, the technical guys are around if you need help with anything that's more in depth. So thank you very much.